Hello there, welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Criterion, and in this edition we'll be looking at the forthcoming release in 4K of Peter Bogdanovich's 1971 film The Last Picture Show. Now this film featured some really great new Hollywood talent of the time, in the shape of a young Timothy Bottoms as Sonny Crawford, Sybil Shepherd as J.C. Farrow, and a youthful Jeff Bridges also as Dwayne Jackson. Bogdanovich had been given his directorial break by his mentor Roger Corman a few years previous with Targets from 1968, but his real career breakthrough came with the drama The Last Picture Show. As a burgeoning new director, he persuaded his producer of the time, Stephen J. Friedman, to shoot the film in black and white, to assist with the evoking of the period and realising his vision for the piece. Now, of course, as well as netting 4 Academy Award nominations and 2 Oscars, one for Cloris Leachman as Best Supporting Actress and the other for Ben Johnson as Best Supporting Actor, it also went on to garner major accolades in the UK and all around the world at various film festivals. Now, Bogdanovich had the idea for the film when he was in a drugstore, and while he was waiting in a cashier's line, he happened to look at a rack of paperback books, and his eye fell on an interesting title, The Last Picture Show. The back of the book said it was about kids growing up in Texas. Now, Bogdanovich rejected it at the time, it didn't interest him, and he put the book back. But later, actor Sal Mineo handed him the book once again and told him he always wanted to be in a film of the book, but he was sadly too old. After discussing the proposed film script with Orson Welles, his house guest at the time, Bogdanovich agreed with Orson that shooting the film in black and white would work well aesthetically, by which then was an unusual choice. Now, the film itself was shot in the author Larry McMurtry's small hometown of Archer City, located in north central Texas near the Oklahoma state line. The location had a similarity to famed cowtown Abilene, Kansas, in Howard Hawks' film from 1948 Red River. Now that was purely intentional. Red River, of course, is again tied in as the last picture show at the cinema, which Sonny and Dwayne watch at the end of the film. As high school senior Sonny Crawford, played by Timothy Bottoms, makes his way through Main Street in the North Texas town of Anarene in The Last Picture Show, the old-timers of the town pelt him with complaints about his football team's performance the previous night. Another in what appears to be a long line of embarrassing drubbings. Now, the gentlest jab of all comes from Sam the Lion, Ben Johnson, who owns the few remaining businesses left in Anarene, and he puts up money for the game, surely for reasons more sentimental than rational. A few football teams have had some luck with tackling, Sam tells Sonny. Keeps the other team from scoring too often. Now, of course, Sonny doesn't take this to heart. He is a multi-sport athlete, probably only because the school doesn't have enough boys to fill out the rosters. Now, when the basketball season rolls around, there's talk of a 121-14 loss that seems like a new state benchmark for sheer futility. But he's been skipping most of the practices on account of an affair that he's been having with the coach's wife. Now, he's a good-natured kid, by and large, usually sensitive to the vulnerabilities of others, which accounts for his friendship that he strikes up with the intellectually disabled Billy, played in the film by Sam Bottoms, and for the affair too, which is rooted as much in pity as misdirected teenage lust. Now, what's most striking and important about Sonny, however, is his passivity. Why should he care about anything? His generation has inherited what appears to be a ghost town. Now, mostly teenagers tend to live by the moment in the best of circumstances, but short-term thinking seems like a defence mechanism for the high schoolers taking part in the film. J.C. Farrow, for instance, Sybil Shepherd, is the glamorous daughter of the only well-to-do family in the town. and she frets about her floundering relationship with Sonny's best friend Dwayne, played by Jeff Bridges, and treats her sexuality with a combination of desire and calculation. She wants to lose her virginity to Dwayne, because that seems like the socially respectable thing to do, but her lustier interests lie elsewhere. So it's left to her hard-drinking mother Lois, played by Ellen Burstyn, to worry about Jacey getting pregnant and marrying too young, and ending up in the same rut as Lois has found herself in. Now, the most touching relationship in the film is also born of hasty, impulsive decision-making. Asked by his coach to drive his wife Ruth, that's Cloris Leachman, to a health clinic just outside of the town, Sonny eagerly accepts the assignment because it gets him out of civics class. But Ruth's needs are too overwhelming for Sonny to understand, much more to accommodate, which leads to a scene that earned Leachman, the actress, known more for her comedy, a well-deserved Oscar. Beginning and ending outside the movies, Peter Bogdanovich's sophomore feature, The Last Picture Show, is a clear-eyed portrait of a small North Texas town in decline. It's also a film that isn't afraid of hard-won sentiment, although often brought into discussions of the new Hollywood, and certainly sharing a downbeat sensibility with its stablemates at BBS Productions. Films like Bob Rathelson's 5 Easy Pieces from 1970 and The King of Marvin Gardens from 1972. Now, this Bogdanovich opus is informed by a different set of motivations, influences, feelings and emotions. And although we are shown a strong contrast between the lonesome, windswept lives of the film's community of characters and those flickering on the single cinema screen in Anarene, there is a strong sense of realism and the detail of everyday life in the wonderfully crafted but spare production design of Polly Platt, and indeed in the starkly evocative black and white cinematography by Robert Surtees. And as a result, The Last Picture Show is quite some distance away from the nostalgia film, a form that would become a dominant force across subsequent decades. Now, music from the film is drawn from various sources, but mainly it consists of many songs by Hank Williams Sr. and other country and western and 1950s popular music recording artists, again evoking the period. And in 1998, the Library of Congress selected the film for preservation in the US National Film Registry for being culturally, historically or aesthetically significant. Now, the cast of The Last Picture Show now reads as a who's who of Hollywood stars, but back when it was made in 1971, they were all relatively young and some quite inexperienced. The cast in the film consists of Timothy Bottoms playing Sonny Crawford, Jeff Bridges as Dwayne Jackson, Sybil Shepherd as Jacey Farrow, Ben Johnson as Sam the Lion, Cloris Leachman as Ruth Pauper, Ellen Burstyn as Lois Farrow, Eileen Brennan as Genevieve, Clu Gulager as Abilene, Sam Bottoms as Billy, and Randy Quaid as Lester Marlowe. You see what I mean. Director Frank Marshall also appears in an acting role as Tommy Logan. Now, the film has already appeared in the 3rd Columbia Classics set as a 4K, but this disc isn't for sale separately. There are some special features on that release. But now here's some facts regarding the restoration, supervised by Grover Crisp. This film is certainly not new to Criterion. It had a Laserdisc release back in March of 1991, followed by a DVD release, and that came as part of the original America Lost and Found, the BBS story, which of course was later upgraded to Blu-ray. But it wasn't until some years later that a Wetgate scan was done from the original film negatives at Cineric in New York, under the supervision of the restoration expert there, Seth Berkowitz. More work was done by colorist Sherry Eisenberg at Roundabout Entertainment, using Peter Bogdanovich's approved transfer as a guide, and even deluxe audio tweaked a bit of the soundtrack as well. In addition, a long-time troublesome dialogue scene featuring Ben Johnson, which had been damaged in the original lab master, also had some digital improvements made to it. HDR grading has now been added to the film and Dolby Vision, and it certainly now looks the best it ever has. Now sadly the director didn't live to see the final finished transfer, but it's this transfer that Criterion uses on this 4K director's cut, with the following special features contained on 2 additional Blu-rays. Texasville from 1990, the sequel to The Last Picture Show, presented in both the original colour theatrical version and a black and white version of the director's cut, produced in collaboration with cinematographer Nicholas von Sternberg. 2 audio commentaries featuring director Peter Bogdanovich and actors Sybil Shepherd, Randy Quaid, Cloris Leachman and Frank Marshall. 3 documentaries about the making of the film. Screen tests and location footage. Introduction to Texasville featuring Bogdanovich, Shepherd and actor Jeff Bridges. Excerpts from a 1972 television interview with the filmmaker Francois Truffaut about the new Hollywood. And there are trailers and an essay written by film critic Graham Fuller, and excerpts from an interview with Bogdanovich about Texasville, with a new introduction by Bogdanovich by the biographer Peter Tongat. The cover is by F. Ron Miller. Now, the inclusion of the inferior sequel Texasville in both theatrical and director's cuts is a nice touch indeed for completists, but the real jewel in the crown in this set is the release of the restored director's cut of The Last Picture Show. But let's talk a little bit about Texasville, its sequel. In 1984, 33 years after the events depicted in The Last Picture Show, 50-year-old Dwayne Jackson, Jeff Bridges, once reprising his role again, is a wealthy tycoon of a near-bankrupt oil company. His relationship with his family is not prospering well. His wife Carla, played by Annie Potts, believes that Dwayne is cheating on her, and his son, Dickie, played by William McNamara, seems to be following in his father's libidinous footsteps. Ruth Popper, that's Cloris Leachman, working now as Dwayne's secretary, and despondent Lester Marlowe, that's Randy Quaid, is now a businessman, seeming to be a prime candidate for a business crisis, a heart attack or even both. Now, some of the original stars reprised their roles, but despite being directed by Bogdanovich, Texasville from 1990 just didn't capture the audience's attention at the time, and it performed poorly at the US box office. Hoping to raise that nostalgic throwback feel, cinema had moved on, and it didn't have a place like it had had in the early 1970s. The film was competing against just too many Hollywood comedies and action films at that time to garner a serious appreciation, but it nonetheless exists as an official sequel to The Last Picture Show. And it's nice for that to be included in this set. Now, it would be a full decade indeed after The Last Picture Show before Bogdanovich again confronted falling in love or the troubles of love more directly in his highly personal romantic comedy drama They All Laughed, which starred Audrey Hepburn, Ben Gazzara, John Ritter and Dorothy Stratton. But there's no doubt that The Last Picture Show offered a unique view of the world of the haves and the have-nots, those unlucky souls who find someone but invariably lose them. And few modern directors are as attentive to love and to loss. The Last Picture Show releases in 4K UHD in the US on Tuesday the 14th of November, and we see the same title coming to the UK collection on Monday the 27th of November, and its existing spine number 549 is in the collection. Next time we feature Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets, coming to the collection in 4K UHD format. So until then, from me, it's goodbye and above all, good Criterion viewing.